Hello?
Hi, Nashid. Are you there? Nashid?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Great.
Hey, it's Renee Willis. How are you doing?
I'm great, Renee. How are you?
Hey, doing well. You sound like you're just next door, but I know you're in Cincinnati.
I'm actually in South Africa right now.
Where are you now?
No, I'm in Cincinnati.
Oh,
I
I was gonna say, well, look, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe you really are next door then, huh? Awesome. Well, we wanted to make sure that that we had a chance to talk before folks started to join the call. And so I guess what we'll do, we'll go into, because we don't have any updates to provide here at the coalition. There are a couple of things I'll provide at the end of the presentation. But what I'll really do is go into just speaking about what these calls are, the purpose of these calls. I'll introduce you, and then you can go through your presentation to tell people about the topic. But what we do have from you, so I know you sent over a handout, and we sent it out to the group I guess it was this morning. Yeah. So everyone should have it, but we also. Oh, awesome. So, Nashid, do you see okay, so what do you see on your screen?
Tenant Talk Live, Monday, December 16th.
Awesome. Do you also?
I don't think he'll see this. He won't see all this.
Okay. We have, when you're ready for us to pull up the handout, we can do that. Can you click on the handout? I just want to make sure he can see it. A lot of stuff going on here. Okay, this is your handout, right?
That's correct.
Okay, fantastic. At any point, do you want us to pull this up so that people can see this, or how do you want to handle that?
At the very beginning, because it's just to let them know where it is, but I'm actually going to talk with what it takes to even utilize it. How it's all about self. How there's things that they have to deal with inside themselves and their community in order to make it happen.
Got it. So you're going to talk through this document. So you'll want us to leave this up, and you'll just tell us to scroll or do whatever we need to show the next page. Is that how you want to do it? Or can you control this?
I think I have to make.
We're seeing if we can make you a presenter, a panel, to take over the controls.
Right.
Tori's on. I could call her and ask.
Okay.
Tori, can you hear me? Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right, Nashid, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, very clearly.
Okay, awesome. So what we're gonna do, just let us know, we'll have up the slide or the document for you, and just let us know as you need us to scroll through. We'll do it here on our side.
Oh, dang. I missed all the fun.
I know, right? We were gonna let you drive. Now we're gonna have to take back the control.
Okay.
It's all good. It's just less work that you have to do.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait a minute. We may have something here. Let's see.
Okay, Nashid, are you on your computer?
Yes, sir.
Did you you might have gotten an email from us making you a presenter.
Would that be in my regular email?
Yeah, the email that we've been talking to you on.
Okay, because I have give control, deny, keyboard and mouse control requests.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
So you want me to do something with that?
Can you pull up the document?
Share my screen. You have been made the presenter. Please close confidential windows. When ready, show my screen. Okay, let me try. Show screen.
Yeah, your screen's up.
My screen's up, but it's not up where I can see it. So I don't. So do I do anything with this box that says keyboard mouse control? Do I check give control? Deny? Do I do anything with this?
I would accept it.
Well, don't say, okay, well, I'm gonna push give control because that's the only thing that I have. Okay, you share keyboard and mouse control. Your mouse always take priority. Okay. All right, mouse, go to work. Oh, I actually don't see, it's not taking priority. Does it say it? Maybe there's something I'm not clicking. I've got a control on the right. I mean, a bunch of controls. Maybe we should have started this yesterday.
I see your mouse moving.
Right, okay, but it doesn't move anything unless I'm in the wrong spot.
Can you not see your own mouse?
Yeah, I can see my mouse.
And you see it moving?
I can see it moving.
Okay, go to the document that you want us to see. That Word document.
Oh, in my computer. Okay, in my computer.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And then
Can I
X
take
out
all this
where,
stuff on the right way?
yeah, make it big and then take out the X on the left.
Yeah, it's big now. That's what I want to do is get rid of it. No, I don't want to leave webinar. You sure you want to leave? No. I want to minimize it. Don't let me minimize. Oh, it lets me move it though. Okay. All right. So are you saying the movement
Yep.
of the document?
Click X on the left where that navigation thing is.
Well, last time I clicked it, oh, on the left. Okay, yeah. Okay, is that good?
Yep.
Great. I'm in control again. I feel so much better.
Awesome.
Okay, we're gonna switch back to mine for the PowerPoint.
Okay, you're gonna take control back.
Yep.
Okay. I guess I have to put up with it. I mean, I guess I have to take it.
All right, so I think we're all set and ready to go. We are just, we're gonna put this in. I think we have a few people already on, but we'll get started at 6 o'clock our time, Eastern time, which is about in what, 5 minutes or so? Yeah, in about 5 minutes. And then we will start the recording at that point. So if you want to hang tight.
I'll hang tight.
Awesome. Thank you, Nashid.
And then when
Thank you, Renee.
I'll tell you
Yes.
that I'll make you the presenter, and then you can take control again.
Okay, will you minimize this Tenant Talk Live? 'Cause I don't see where I can do that.
Yeah, so when he makes you the presenter again, you'll be able to take over and then share your screen. Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
Yes, ma'am. So since we got a minute, can we try that? Because I don't have a minimize. I got Tenant Talk Live, but I don't have minimize anywhere.
Okay, hold on here.
Okay.
You're the presenter now.
All right. Now I see it. And then I got to show my screen. Do I click that or do I just exit out?
Show your screen. Show your screen.
Okay. All right, and that gives it to me. All
Yep.
right. That works. Okay, I'm good.
All right.
Ah, shit.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Willis. Thank you for joining tonight's Tenant Talk Live at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. We are super excited to have you with us this evening. This is our second edition of Tenant Talk Live. So again, we're very excited to have you with us. As many of you may already know, every other month we are hosting these regular calls and webinars with resident leaders. And we'll provide opportunities for residents to connect with the coalition and with one another, to share best practices and to learn how to be more involved in influencing federal housing policies and to continue to lead in your community. And so tonight we're super excited to share with you. I'm gonna go to the next slide. You can see our faces of the folks who are presenting today. So we have with us today Nashid Shakir, Kyle Arbuckle, and myself, Renee Willis. Kyle and I are from the coalition, and Nashid Shakir is with Jurisdiction-Wide Resident Advisory Board out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And if you want to go to the next slide. And this is just the agenda for today. We'll do just quick introductions, and then we'll hear from our main speaker today. And then we want to leave enough time for Q&A. I'm hopeful that all of you will have great questions to ask of us, and hopefully we'll have great answers for you. But then we'll talk about some of the things that are upcoming here at the coalition. Next slide. So today's presenter is Nashid Shakir. He is a program manager with Jurisdiction-Wide Resident Advisory Board in Cincinnati, Ohio. Nashid is a friend of the coalition. He often comes to our policy forums. And he is going to speak to us today about tenant participation and tenant opportunities in public housing. So Nashid, can you hear us? And are you there?
I most certainly can, and I am here. Very excited.
Wonderful. We're super excited to have you. And you're coming in loud and clear from Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. So I'll talk softer as long as I'm clear.
That's right. Well, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and jump into your presentation. We're all very excited to hear what's in store. So we're going to change over. We're going to give you the wheel, and so that you can control the slides. So Nashid, thank you for joining, and take it away.
Okay, well, Renee said something very important right there. She's going to give me the wheel and let me be in control. Well, if you're from Cincinnati, you know that's dangerous. That to have me in control, because I take it, I run with it, you know, and I try not to look back until we accomplish the goals that we need to accomplish. And as we look at the rules and regulations, the code of federal regulations, you know, I'm hoping that everybody's familiar with it. CFR 24,964 is what most folks, most tenants are familiar with, simply because there's tenant opportunities in public housing. But Title 24 is so much bigger than that. And what I've done is actually just introduce you to some of the, with your handouts, some of the areas that we should be looking at and we should be diving deeper into. And as you get into Title 24, you'll find out that each one of the things that I've given you have a life of its own and a whole lot of information to help you be more effective as a resident leader. And that's what this is all about, being resident leaders. Because there's a stereotypical thought of residents in public housing that tends to go across the country. And in that thought, as one of our residents said so aptly described, she said that a lot of times they think because we have subsidized housing that we have substandard thinking. She said she's here to prove that that's untrue. Not only do we have a great thinking, superior thinking, we're standing up for what's ours, our rights, our understanding, and we understand the law sometimes better, especially the regulations that apply to tenants in public housing, than the frontline managers do, simply because we've been studying them. We've been studying with understanding. We've been reaching out to our attorneys to help interpret things that we may not be able to interpret till we get to the point where we understand it from the perspective of the residents and not the perspective of the institution. And that's been a lot of the real problem that we've dealt with. A lot of times we're looking at transactional, where that's the transaction between the institution and the resident in order to actually control the leadership was inside their properties. And the transaction is, if you don't act right, we're going to take away your ability to live in our housing. We will cause you so many headaches and so many issues that will eventually evict you on things that we may have caused. You know, they may not think that out straightforward, but a lot of times in a way that they respond to your questions about just safe, sanitary, you know, and affordable housing. It's almost as if you're being punished for using the opportunities that's been available to you that actually pays them their salaries and give them an opportunity to actually live in what they think is a better way than yours, which a lot of times is only a paycheck, maybe not even a whole paycheck away, you know, from being in what they think is your situation. Because a lot of times we say that people in public housing, a lot of them, because that's their choice, because it's easier to address a lot of the insanities that are in our society, especially when it comes to those who actually want to make money off of those who have less, by using the opportunity that's here to help us get ahead than it is to just fight our way through a lot of the insanity that's going on. In fact, I was with a person today. I was with a doctor, in fact. We was talking about the ills of the community and how they need to be addressed. And then he made a point that I didn't really realize, that, you know, our public administration actually had killed one of the programs that was helping low-income people get through the trauma of just living as low-income people. And it's simply because they stopped going after white-collar crime. And when they went after white-collar crime, there was $2.5 billion that was available to actually fund one of the programs that they actually had cut down. And now, after they had done that, what they said was that the monies that was being brought in, the $2.5 million to fund the programs, had actually come down this year to $5 million. You know, how ridiculous is that? From $2.5 million to $5 million because they decided they wanted to stop going after white collar crime. Now, who do you think they were thinking about when they made that decision? You know, in the walls of Washington that make decisions. You know, but those are the kind of things that we have to look at. And then we talk about that the administration now says that they're going to cut on the EBT card or the food stamps that will affect some 70 million people. Isn't that ridiculous? You know, what are those people supposed to do? Simply because you're saving money that you lost when you cut the white collar crime that you once actually prosecuted. But we're not going to tarry there. We're going to move forward because what happened was we've got a lot of things that can support us if we actually get into the process of understanding what they are. So what I did was on this slide, it's not on yours, but I actually color coded it so that you can actually see the areas that are important to you. We look at the red, the color coded is actually dealing, and on yours, you can actually look at the pages because we look at the page numbers, but this is actually dealing with tenant participation, resident council development, you know, jurisdiction-wide resident councils development. It's telling us how it's important that we look at this whole thing. So a lot of times what we found out in our community, we had a lot of folks that was going to the housing authority and complaining about their rights and the things that weren't happening that should be happening with their living situation. But they were doing it on their own by themselves, you know, and with our housing authority, I mean, they really weren't getting too far because they had nobody that had their backs. And what we did over the past 10 years is, you know, we decided that maybe we ought to stop doing things individually and trying to be a change agent all by ourselves when we're fighting or we're going against a big authority that we look at now as a big institution. Because the institutions have to maintain themselves to stay alive. We understand that. So we're not upset with the institution. That's just what institutions do. But we are sometimes upset about the fact that we're working as a change agent and get frustrated because we're doing it by ourselves and getting nowhere. It's like those little cartoons that stand in the air twirling their feet and they're going nowhere. So we decided to do is see how actually create a change agency. And a change agency is actually something that causes us to start working as a collective. We got a term that we use, which is called community capacity building. You know, we're looking at the community actually develop a community of practice. That means we understand the rules, the regulations as a body. We have 23 different resident associations inside of our housing authority. And our objective was to get all of those residents and those resident leaders to begin to look at what's set aside for them to actually secure that safe and sanitary and affordable housing, and how do we make that happen as a collective and not as individuals spinning our wheels. So we started actually organizing, and that's what we're looking at now, our resident councils. We said, now we can get all our resident councils working on the same cylinders, clicking at the same time, understanding the rules and regulations that actually govern them and govern the housing authorities when they actually responding to them. Then maybe we can get some movement on the things that need to happen. Because again, I have to reemphasize that sometimes at the application level of the housing management, frontline level, they've become so far away from the rules and regulations that were set down by HUD and start repeating things that was handed down by each of the managers that came before them, that they needed to be educated on the rules and regulations. So of course, as individuals who really feel good about themselves, much more now than we did 10 years ago, we said that we'll educate them. But first we have to educate ourselves. So when we look at our first page, page 1, it actually deals with the purpose of the tenant participation opportunities in public housing. The purpose of this part is to recognize the importance of resident involvement in creating a positive living environment and in actively, now that's an action word. That's not a sitting word. That's not a I hope that it happens word. That's not a praying word. Oh God, please. It's actively participating in the overall mission of public housing. Now this is 24 CFR. This is part of the code and regulations that's set down by the federal government. And then it goes in to look at HUD policy on tenant participation. Now, I'm not going to read all this. I'm going to let you read it. That's why I gave it to you. But I want you to get hyped about the fact that if you didn't have a way to actually deal with a lot of issues that's going on, you now have federal code, the code of federal regulations that was designed specifically to give you voice in the development of the housing that you live in, and the maintenance and the maintenance and the voice of the housing that you live in. And then it goes down to 964.18, and there's a lot in between that. I just pulled these out. The role and activities under parts B and C, say housing authorities with 250 units or more should have, shall have, shall, a housing authority shall officially recognize, if you got 250 units or more, a resident council. So now the activity is on us to actually develop the regular council, the resident council, in the way that's been set out by HUD itself, and the housing authority will support that process. But you gotta be strong when you stand up and say that you want to have it happen. Now you'll find some housing authorities are right on it. They looking for it because they get points. They get points for actually working with their residents. And then a lot of housing authorities not threatened by residents that are able to organize themselves and actually become a partner to the process and development of their housing, the development and the building of their capacity to actually do for self, to be self-sufficient. When I came up, the projects were about that. That's why they call them projects. How can I take you from subsidies to being self-sufficient? Now that's our project. And these are all of the things, opportunities that we have to help make that happen. And then we had counselors, and then we had people that were working with our residents to actually bring that about. And before we actually somehow inherited, when I say we, African Americans, supposedly inherit the picture of residents in public housing, and it was mainly Caucasians, non-Black folks, then it was really utilized to help make a difference, in the lives of the public housing residents. That's what it was instituted for. It wasn't instituted for us. When you go back and look at the history, it was instituted for poor whites, or whites that were coming out of the military, that was, that needed a hand, to give them a hand. Nothing wrong with that, but a lot of things have not changed, inside of that process of the opportunities that's there, except for our understanding, how do we utilize it and how do we take advantage of the opportunities. So when you actually go through, you'll see the role of resident councils. You'll see resident involvement in housing authority management operations. You'll see, and that's just part of what's there. When you go to 964.115, it'll actually tell you how you should organize your resident council, as far as taking votes, setting up the group that actually identifies, goes out and recruit candidates that run for resident council. It gives you the full 9 yards on how to do that. But then it doesn't stop there, because when we look at agency, we go from the individual to a resident council, and that's where the individual is no longer speaking for itself, but he has a group that he's able to speak with and able to speak for them that have to be recognized by the housing authority itself. And in that group, if you have a multitude of resident councils, like if you were in New York and you had the boroughs and all of those type things, or you have 2, 3, or 4 resident councils, then you can actually become a jurisdiction-wide resident council, or a jurisdiction-wide, as we are, resident advisory board. And one of the key things that is when you start coming together, you know, what we did for years is be under the umbrella of the housing authority without realizing it. You know, all our 23 resident councils, you know, as they grew, as they developed, as the resident councils came on board, they accepted the fact that the housing authority got the dollars and actually sent them down to us in any way they wanted to, because it came through the housing authority. Well, somebody got bright maybe about 15 years ago and said that, if money comes through 501c3s and we're the resident councils that have actually started working together, then, and the housing authority determines on how we get our money, when we get our money, and who gives us our money, then why don't we form a 501c3 and go after our own dollars so we can hire our own staff that can advocate for us at least 8 hours a day, you know, through some of the funding that's made available by HUD. And they incorporated themselves. 2007, they incorporated themselves under the leadership of Ms. Dolores Calhoun, which is one of the sheroes that we'll talk about later on. But incorporated themselves and then went after a Ross grant. Let me tell you about the Ross grant real quickly, because that's real important. As we did the research on how we can actually get residents employed, get paid, you know, and advocate for us in a manner that authorities and institutions actually pay their people to advocate for them, you know, we found what's called the Resident Opportunity Self-Sufficiency Grant. And it's a grant that when we started, when we first applied for it, it was $38 million in that grant, and 25%, this is HUD, has set aside, it was 7-point-something million dollars, was set aside that only residents could apply for. But residents either had to have a 501c3 or they had the partner was an organization, a community-based organization that had a 501c3, so we could apply for the funds. So thankfully, Ms. Calhoun had a 501c3 that she'd gotten for residents who became like in the leadership. It was started by Ms. Doris Hill, who was the president of the J-RAB before Ms. Calhoun came in 2005, but 2007 we actually got it. 2008 we applied for the dollars from the Ross grant and got it awarded. 2009 we were able to hire on staff and we're able to actually spend time on understanding the rules and regulations to actually advocate for the things that we need to advocate for and actually get stronger and really understand more about the difference between a change agent and a change agency. You know, and change agency, as I said, is when folks come together and they start to make things happen in the name of the collective and not the individual. Now that's real important. Let me go down further. That's the jurisdiction-wide resident advisory board, was what came together in order to get the 501c3 in order to advocate for its residents. We have 23 organizations that represent some 10,000 residents, you know, that meet every third Monday to discuss what are the issues that we need to advocate for together, what are the things that we need to actually bring to the forefront and discuss with our housing authority, and what perspective do we need to have as residents to make sure that they get a clear understanding the difference between the institutional perspective and the resident perspective, since residents are there 24 hours and the institution come in maybe 8 hours a day, some 5-6 hours a day. Okay, so when we move from there and we look at our residents, as we move down, we actually move into a lot of our residents, they own businesses. But a lot of times the business is done under the table because a lot of times the overhead is actually too much for a resident-owned business to keep up with as they're getting started and as they're developing. So one of the things that we wanted to do is help resident-owned businesses understand that there are regulations inside the hood that says we can help you get a foot up inside of the authority itself, which our authority spends maybe $100 to $120 million a year, through our communities. So in spending that money, when we look at Section 3, and it's real important that you read Section 3, because when you read Section 3, which is what we look at further down, we deal with resident-owned businesses, alternative procurement, that's what Section 3 is, 85.36. Then when you look at that, what we find out is that is set up so that residents can actually compete against themselves rather than having to compete against big construction companies. Big procurement, they can do procurement against one another. Now this is construction, it deals with janitorial services, it deals with maintenance, it deals with a lot of issues that when you look at your housing authority's vendor list, or you look at their Section 3 procurement, then they'll tell you what all of the areas that it covers and more. And it's really important that we understand that, because we have a lot of companies that have skills that don't feel they have an opportunity to actually expand on their skills and build that capacity to help them want to stop working from under the table and start working on top of the table and getting a big piece of those dollars that go past them. And we look at the past, $100 to $120 million. We're supposed to be getting a big portion of that, at least up to about 30%, 30 cents on every dollar, and employment and training and subcontracting and contracting. Then, we're talking about $40 million that's been going through our hands for years and 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 years since about 1968. Now, what we need to do is actually learn those regulations, understand them, and start using them to force what our opportunities are so that our residents can actually do what they were designed to do: build self-sufficiency, get back on their feet, stop using the subsidies, and open up room for others to come through and also get those opportunities. And another thing that a lot of us don't know, as we move into looking at opportunities, we deal with resident management. Resident management, and I'm going to read this because I think it's something that we all should know. It said, it is HUD's policy to encourage resident management. That means that when we identify a part of resident management that may be done by the housing authorities that we think we can do better, well, there's a clause inside of here in CFR 24 that says that if you can do better, then put yourself in the situation and the position so that we can give you the opportunity to actually get paid for making our housing authority better. And your local management should help you in that process. It said HUD encourages HAs, housing authorities, resident council, and resident management corporations to explore the various functions involved in management to identify appropriate opportunities for contracting with a resident management corporation. Potential benefits of resident management entities include improved quality of life, experiencing the dignity of meaningful work, enabling residents to choose where they want to live, and meaningful participation in the management of the housing development. Well, that says a whole lot. And then it goes down, and we used to call it the first right of refusal. You know, it's somewhat changed. But PHAs must consult with residents who will be affected by the proposed action with respect to all demolition or disposition applications. PHAs must consult. Isn't that something? The Public Housing Authority must provide with its application evidence that the application was developed in consultation with residents who will be affected by the proposed action. Any resident organization for the development, Public Housing Authority-wide resident organizations that will be affected by the demolition or disposition, and the Resident Advisory Board. The PHA must also submit copies of any written comments submitted to the PHA and any evaluation that the PHA has made of the comments. Resident organizations offer the sale of applicability. The situation where the PHA applies to dispose of a development or portion of a development, the PHA shall, in appropriate circumstances, that's if you actually have the capacity and show the capacity. That means getting yourself ready for the disposition of any property. An appropriate circumstance determined by the Assistant Secretary initially offer the property proposed for disposition to any eligible resident organization. Initially offer the property proposed for disposition to any eligible resident organization. Now that has a lot of meaning when we enter this whole RAB process where public and private funding is coming together. You know, if they're going to move the property to public management and we have the credentials as residents to make that happen, then we also have the right to bid for the opportunity to actually do that according to HUD. But it's really boils back to us. A lot of the work has to happen with us being prepared for any opportunity that comes about. You know, so I gave that to you so you didn't have to look for it. And then my telephone number is at the bottom, you know, who I am, the fact that I'm in Cincinnati. And that's just so you can reach out anytime that you want to. But this is not really my focus because you can read this yourself. And as you see, ecfr.gov on the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations is where you can get these regulations. You know, so and that's ecfr.gov on your computer, and the regulations are there. And then just put in search for Title 24, and it take you to all of those opportunities for tenant participation, tenant opportunity in public housing. You know, I suggest you go there. But as we look at, we say agent to agency. You know, so President Obama said we need to be the change that we're looking for. Well, I took that to heart in everything that I do. We need to be the change that we're looking for. So if we actually have a lot of individual stuff that's going on in our communities that we think that we are responsible for individually, but we're spinning our wheels, what we need to do is rethink that, because we have rules, we have regulations, we have codes here that says that if you become a resident council, then your voice is much bigger than an individual. And if you could become a jurisdiction-wide resident advisory board or resident council, then that multiplies your voice even more. You know, and the more partnership that the housing authority has with communities, then the better off they are. Because I said, okay, I was muted for a minute, now I'm unmuted. Okay, but as we move on, you know, there's some things that I want to caution us about. We begin to stand up and use the Code of Federal Regulations as rules. There's a lot of folks that I said before on frontline management that really don't understand it, and they really don't like the fact that you're standing up and you're challenging them. But that's okay because it's a learning curve, and now you're the teacher. Now, being the teacher, then what you have to do is, first of all, not let yourself be baited into what Donald Scone called, and Donald Scone was a social scientist back in 1977, which I love. And I do a lot of research off him because he was right on the money. You know, he said that one of the things that we don't want to become is radical revolutionists because we're tired of being mistreated and we are not going to take it anymore. Well, we got to get into the mindset that we're not going to take it anymore because we're going to beat them with the rules that apply to both of us. And the better we understand them, the better we can actually utilize them to bring the changes about that we want in our lives. Now, one of the things that we did was we've actually become partners with legal aid. You know, anything that we want some a clear interpretation of or a clear definitive answer about as far as the legal status of the rule, then what we do is go to our legal aid person. You know, they sit down, we discuss it, we look at it from the perspective of the institution, from the perspective of the individual, and then we make a determination, how do we move forward? You know, and once we make that determination to move forward, we refuse to let anybody turn us around. It's one of the things that Frederick Douglass said, which is a quote that I love to repeat. Frederick Douglass said, power cedes nothing without demand. Power cedes nothing without demand. So when you make that demand, though, make sure that you have the rules and the regulations that support it. You know, and he also said, a little further down, he said, you may not get everything that you pay for, but you will certainly pay for everything that you get. That means in the front of the process, you have to put in your work. You have to put in your time. You have to actually have yourself ready that when you step to power, that power understands that you're not just coming emotionally, but you're coming with the facts that can help them understand, you know, that you not only have rights, but you have rights that are rooted in law. That's very important. And then Harriet Tubman said, and those of you who have not seen Harriet Tubman's movie, then I suggest you see it. You know, it may not be totally accurate because it's actually a fiction and they got to make you enjoy it, but there's so much accuracy in it that it's worth seeing. And Harriet Tubman, for those who don't know her, she freed some 750 slaves out of slavery. And she said she would have freed more if more knew they were slaves. Isn't that something? If more knew they were slaves. So a lot of this is really about our mental adjustment about ourselves. A lot of times we've been defined so much as to who we are and who we aren't and what we can't do and what we're not going to do and, you know, what we don't want to do, that a lot of times we start taking it on. We start living the definition that's been given us by somebody else. What does it say? We got to redefine ourselves. And we got to redefine ourselves through our actions and not just our voices. You know, so it's the community of practice is very important as we start reaching out. And we got to understand also that everybody's not going to come the first time. Everybody's not going to see it. Everybody's not going to want to do the study, but that's okay. You know, we only need a few. And I'm going to say this one thing, and then I'm going to open up for questions and answers. I want you as a math teacher, and I was studying calculus, and the math teacher really made it clear when we were trying to figure out how to do this formula. He said, ho, 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 ho. He said, stop. So one of the things that y'all got to understand that calculus is only addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, do and undo. He says as simple as that. He said they changed the names, they changed the wording. You know, they make you think that it's all complicated, but it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, do and undo. He said the real important things happen with people like Jesus, who came by himself and changed the thinking of a whole generation of people, no, a whole history of people. He said people like Muhammad, who came forward by himself, and he changed the thinking of a whole continent and a whole world of people. Moses, Abraham. He said those were the real tasks. He said, so, you know, this is nothing. Calculus, they just scare you with it. And what I'm saying to you is that your real task is that you stand up. You stand up, and if you do it by yourself, understand the rules, the regulations, the information, and then you reach out to your residents and share it with them. First you get one, and then you got two, and then that two get two, then you got four, and then that four get four, you got eight, and then you do that until you got a big enough force so that your housing authority now start to understand that it's better to work with you than to push against you. You know, so I'm going to open up the question and answers right now, because that's what it really is about. It's really about you. It's about that community yourself, and how do you make yourself, multiply yourself as you step up and you be the leader that you're looking for. You know, transformational leader, not a transactional leader. So not about a transaction. It's about how can I multiply me so we can actually make this housing authority that I live in do what it's supposed to do on a human basis in order to address the needs of the people within it. And on that, I'm good. Open for questions and answers.
All right, thank you so very much. That was such a powerful presentation. And I know for myself, I got a lot out of it. So I'm hoping that our attendees did as well. So we are going to open it up for Q&A. And I'm going to ask Kyle of the coalition staff to share with you how to ask your questions.
Okay, I think Tori's still on, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can raise your hand. There should be a button somewhere where it'll say raised hand or raise your hand, and then I can unmute you and you can ask your question. So Joey's also on, and he can correct me if I'm wrong with that regard too. And he is correct. All right, I am correct. All right.
All right, and while we're waiting for questions, Nashid, if you can share with us once again, I know you already did earlier, but if you can share with us once again where to find the material on the website.
Okay, on the website, it's ecfr.gov. You know,
Yes.
and go to the website. I mean, and what it'll do is take you to the electronic code of federal regulations. And inside it will have a search, and you put Title 24. Title 24 will bring you up to tenant participation and tenant opportunities. And that's a lot of them, you know, so, but it gives you in detail what you need to do, what's your rights, you know, what the housing authority have to respond to. And you just have to be man or woman enough. They say man up, woman up, to man up, woman up, and then start not demanding them, but commanding them by actually bringing them alive, you know, actively bringing them forth.
Awesome. And it looks like we have a few questions.
From Sherry, but Ed, did you have something?
Yeah, just this is Ed Graham from the staff as well. If you click on just not 24 CFR, you're going to get a boatload of stuff that will just overwhelm you. Then go further and look for 964 or any of those other sections that Nashid had mentioned. Otherwise, there's like a bazillion things in 24 CFR.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ed.
But I want you, but I actually want you to start looking to those things. You know, I mean, I gave you the specific things that can actually get you started, but it's so much more in 24, you know, that we often don't look at because we're directed to 964, tenant participation. We're not directed to 970. We're not directed to 963. We're not directed to the things that give meat to those bones. Inside of 964, it even direct you to some of those other places. So I'm saying go to those other places because it's going to give you a wealth of information and a wealth of ammunition to actually help bring safe and sanitary and affordable housing to your residents that they should already have access to.
Awesome. So thank you. Thank you for that. And so it looks like we have our first question from
Sherry Pendlebury. You're unmuted now.
Hi, hello.
Yes, you're
Hello.
unmuted.
I have
Hi,
a
Sinead.
question. Hi, I have a question for Nashid. Can you explain a little clearer for me the difference between transformational and transactional tenant action?
Sure. When you're transactional, it's like you do this, almost like quick quo pro. You do this and we'll do that. You know, a lot of times what happens with the housing authority, they'll say, and they hold our residents. I know in Cincinnati, they tried to hold our residents hostage because if you don't play ball with us, do exactly what we say, then we can evict you. And we had to dispel that whole notion that they could be evicted. And then you have other residents that actually made deals with the housing authority. That's one of the things that I missed. And whenever you rise up and start claiming what's rightfully yours, you're going to have somebody from inside your organization that's going to start trying to tear it down because there's been a private deal at some point, either consciously or unconsciously, that's been made that if we don't have any issues out of you and you try to keep the status quo the way it is, then you're going to get certain advantages. And part of that problem always came with people who worked for the housing authority that were tenants or were still residents, you know, and they always pushed against, you know, what the residents were trying to do for themselves because it should have been done better under the housing authority. Well, after 11 years, we still don't believe that, and we're still growing and we're still expanding, you know, in ourselves. But that's what I mean by transactional. That's a transaction that goes on that a lot of times is not in favor of the residents, as opposed to transformational, which is that if I got some information that I can't keep it, I got to share it with another resident, another leadership organization within the housing authority that's actually pushing to make life better for the residents themselves. You know, I got to share that because what we want to do is transform where we live. We want to transform the way that people think about us. You know, we want to transform people given a definition of who we are because we're going to define ourselves. In fact, what our residents now say is that we are the commodity that the community is looking for. Before the community used us, you know, now we use ourselves. And we go after contracts. We go after grants. We use our housing, our public housing residents to actually be their own commodity. And we share with them that you are the commodity that everybody's been looking for. But now you're going to share yourself as a commodity and then identify who you want to work with you. I hope that explains it without too much excitement. Still
Sometimes
there?
excitement is good.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Carl, can you again share with folks how to ask a question using this platform?
Yeah, so there should be a button that will allow you to raise your hand, as Sherry did. And once you do that, I can unmute you and you'll be able to ask your question.
Did Sherry get her answer? That's my question.
Sherry,
Thank you.
did I answer your question?
You answered my question wonderfully. I got a lot wiser with that. Thank you so much.
And
You're
Sherry, can
welcome.
you just tell us where you're from?
I'm from Ventura County, or excuse me, well, Ventura, the city of Ventura, that housing authority. We got sold with RAD in about 2016. And of course, I'm sure you guys can imagine all the stuff we weren't told. But anyway, so a few of us are getting a lot more active in our housing building with
Awesome.
that.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Sherry. We so appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Tori,
We have another question from Tori.
Tori.
Trying to get there, Tori.
Tori, I think you muted yourself. Oh, never mind.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. So my question was basically just, are there any like guides for, you mentioned, I think Dolores was the person that helped get your resident council to be a 501c3. How do people do that if they don't, like, did she go see a lawyer, or like what's the process for doing that if people are interested in that idea?
There's two ways to do that. One way is we actually went to our legal aid lawyer, and Dolores Calhoun is actually the president of the Cincinnati Jurisdiction-Wide Resident Advisory Board. She went to her legal aid, Cincinnati legal aid, with Mr. John Schrader, you know, and he actually helped work her through the whole process. And that's one way you can do it. You know, a lot of legal aids are there for public housing residents, and then there are some that just don't have the money to do it. But you also can go to irs.gov, irs.gov, and put in, when you go to .gov, then put in nonprofit application, 501c3 application. And what it'll do is actually take you to a little bird who will actually, in an animated cartoon, walk you all the way through the process. That make it so simple, you know, that all you got to do is follow it. You know, so you can either go to a legal aid attorney who helped us, or you can go to irs.gov, and then you can actually get an overview of what's going on. So if you went to a regular attorney, at least you know if they're actually leading you down the right road or not. And that's the government, again, making it easy for us, and we just have to do the work.
Nashid, can you share with us about how long that process took for you guys in Cincinnati to get your 501c3?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, well, actually, we started it because it's all about the mindset now. You gotta remember that. We started it in like 2004. And first we had to help residents understand that they didn't have a 501c3, that they actually were under the authority of the housing authority, and that the housing authority was actually getting the funds and then passing it out. So it took from about 2004 to 2007 to actually get the 501c3, but it wasn't a work. Now, we've done it for a few other folks ourselves. It really takes, when you actually put in there's two things that you do. When you first start, if you look at the animation, then you can either get it for $250 because there's an application fee. You know, $250 will actually get you, allow you to be able to get up to $10,000 in outside funding donated to your organization. You know, but that's for you to actually get started. And once you submit the paperwork, which is the application that you fill out, then they'll send you a letter to work on, where they actually doing a review and seeing if your organization is worthy of a 501c3, which is not They don't go through a lot, but they take about 6 months to make that happen. And then after that 6-month process, they'll give you a determination as a 501c3. If everything goes like it's supposed to go, in which now you can stop working off of the letter and start working off of your 501c3. But if you want to do $10,000 or more in fundraising, then you have to pay for the applications. I think it's around $750 now. But the animation will tell you that, and then you can go after as much money as you want to, as long as you stay within the rules of the 501c3 once it's awarded. Did I answer your question?
Indeed. And also too, I may have to go on the website just to take a look at this animation that you keep talking about, so I can follow that bird, right?
Yes,
Do we have, right? Do we have
and
any other?
it's
Go
a
ahead,
fun
Nashid.
animation. No, it's a fun animation. So you'll have fun looking at the bird tell you just how to do it. At least I did.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And just looking at our computer, it doesn't appear that we have any other questions or no questions.
No.
No more. No. Okay. So we're going to close it out. But first, I just want to thank you, Nashid, for joining us today and presenting all this great information on tenant participation.
Can I share one more thing before we go?
Absolutely.
Okay. I always like to bring up sheroes and heroes, especially in what we're doing. And we got, and if you're out there and you want to take notes of this, because I didn't write it down on purpose, because if you're interested, you'll look them up. Such as Raquel Williams Jones, who actually is a great person when it comes to resident empowerment with what she's doing, even to the point of building platforms so residents can actually give presentations to each other on the platform, and bring professionals in on her platform also. It's social media platform that she's actually developed, that is worth looking at, and so is she worth knowing. And then you had Willie J.R. Fleming on here before. When you talk about Section 3 and making it work, then he's one of the persons that can actually do that for you. That's William J.R. Fleming. And he's real open. And if he can't help you understand it, he will direct you to somebody who can. And then we got, we look at resident management, we got Cynthia Wiggins, who actually has resident management in, I think it's Louisiana. That's worth looking at because she's been doing it for years. She was one of the originals. She's one of the founders when it comes to residents actually managing and owning property, that was either dispossessed or, dispossessed from the housing authority or came through the housing authority in order for her to actually have her people take management of. And then, of course, there's Dolores Calhoun, who actually gave me my opportunity in Cincinnati to actually look at the grants that are available for resident organizations, and also gave me the ability, once hired, to actually go into the regulations and find out how much more we have, to offer. And of course, I'd be remiss not to talk about National Low Income Housing Coalition, because I've been to, as Renee said, many of their meetings, got a lot of information, a lot of context, and a lot of people from across the country that are actually raising residents to actually stand for themselves, be self-sufficient, empower themselves, build capacity, and then not get into verbal wars or get into attacks of housing authorities, because institutions have to live. If we don't say anything, then they're just doing what they have to do. If we say something, then a lot of times they'll become your partners. It'll take a while. It took us about 10 years, but now we feel pretty comfortable with our with our housing authority. But we don't, we do not look over our shoulders to make sure that we're still going in the right direction. So that's pretty much it. But I wanted to make sure I did a shout out to the sheroes and heroes that are making this happen. And we also looking at pulling together resident associations and jurisdiction-wide resident councils across the country. And Cynthia Nibbins, who actually does a lot of conferences to actually bring us together. to actually talk about the things that need to happen inside of our resident councils, resident authorities to help us take control of our own lives. All right, Renee, I'm done.
No worries, that's great. And I also too just want to include you on that list because I've seen you in other places in Cincinnati, here in DC, and also in Fort Lauderdale sharing this information with residents. So, you know, I definitely want to include you on that list. Before we go, I do have, it looks like we do have one other question. So
Shalonda, can you hear me? Are you still on? Maybe that was a mistake.
Shalonda? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and mute that. But again, Nashid, thank you so much for all the information that you share with us this evening. And also, too, thank you for that segue, because one of the things I wanted to mention was that we do have the forum, the policy forum that's coming up in 2020. So this is a save the date for everyone on the call. And so what we're doing something a little bit different for the 2020 resident session. And really, we're excited to, you know, we're extending the time that we're going to have together at the resident session. So in addition to the 3 hours that we'll have before the conference starts, we'll have about 5 or 6 hours of training the day before. So we're talking about March the 24th through March the 25th, we'll have the resident session. The policy forum will start March the 25th, I think 1 o'clock. And it will conclude on March the 27th with Lobby Day. So please mark your calendars. We hope that all of you will be able to participate and will be able to attend. We do have additional information on our website, but also too, you can go to the forum website, which is nlihcforum.org. And there you can get all the details about the forum. And we're constantly updating the website as well. So if you don't see what you're looking for on the forum website now, definitely check back because we are constantly updating the forum website with speakers and such. But that concludes, and one last thing. So the next Tenant Talk Live is February the 6th. 2020, my goodness, we're talking about another decade, at 6 p.m. Eastern. So please mark your calendar to be involved as well. And also please send us your ideas. We are always looking for topics. We're looking for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking on a future Tenant Talk Live, please let us know. You can reach out. I believe we have our contact information. My email and Kyle's email address are both on the screen. So please do share with us your thoughts about what we should do for upcoming Tenant Talk webinars. Thank you everyone very much for joining today's webinar, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.